Welcome to another episode of Six Figure Secrets for Fractional Experts. My name's Bradley Jacobs. I'm your host. Today, I'm joined by Jen Hamilton. Jen, welcome to the show.
Bradley, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Amazing. So Jen brings 4.5 years as a fractional COO, 13 years as a coach and consultant where she's been on her own, and also a number of years in a business development role. So I'm excited to talk about sales and marketing and the life of a fractional. Anything else to add into that intro that would be helpful for people to know as they listen?
Sure. I think that the thing that is one of my favorite things to do is to mentor and guide other fractionals. It's not easy doing this work on alone. You get to a fractional level and you don't have mentors. You are the mentor. So peer mentoring is really, really powerful. And that's one of my favorite things is to learn from others and to share some of the things I had. So I'm just honored to be here today, and hopefully I provide some of that guidance and mentorship to the audience.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I'm so happy to have you. So one of the things that you talked about is, experience in sales, experience in marketing. From a fractionals perspective, what is the difference, right? Like, let's just make it simple to start. How do we break those two things down?
I think it's funny you asked that. It should be simple, and people get all wrapped around the axis on it all the time. It's so challenging for people when you're in it to make that distinction. For me, the easiest way to draw the line is the activities that get you to the sales call. They say, yes, I want to have a sales call, is marketing. When they say, yes, I want to have a sales call, or whatever you call it, a consultative call, discovery call, intake call. But once you have that scheduled, now they are in your sales process. In my opinion, what do you think, Bradley?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. It is once I get on a call with you, it's sales. And then there actually marketing maybe doesn't end there because there's a nurture experience, right? Yes. So is that marketing continued, or does that just translate into sales? But it can be pretty similar activities that got them on the call, right?
Yeah, I even think when they actually are a client too, you can continue to nurture because referrals are always nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's almost like the marketing probably doesn't stop when you get the sales. It's kind of this underlying layer. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about marketing maybe prior to the sales call. So okay. We are building awareness of our service. We are trying everything we can to get to that discovery call. What are the things that you've seen most successful in just getting more sales calls?
For me, I like to step back and look at the strategy. I think so often, especially in marketing, we get stuck in a lot of tactics. And I've simplified it into two different strategies when it comes to marketing. One is get your target audience into your CRM, or however you're managing the list of people that you're nurturing. And second is nurturing them until they say, yes, I'm ready for that sales call. And so when you kind of put it through those filters, it makes it a lot easier, because then you can say, well, is this my target market I'm talking to? Or am I capturing their information? Because there's so many times we just do things, but we don't invite them into our world. And unless they're in your world, and I consider that being in your CRM, you have their contact information, you have permission to build that relationship. You're still building awareness, but you don't have them in your inner circle to continue to nurture and educate really until they're ready to say, yes, you are speaking to me. I want to speak to you.
So, all right, two main components there, right? Who am I going to talk to? And then what am I going to say? Yes. So let's break it down. Let's start with who am I going to talk to? How does a fractional really nail down that ideal customer profile? Who's best for them?
I'm going to go where they don't do a good job. Almost everyone I talk to is scared, is the best word I could say. If you really get honest with yourself, to niche. And I think it's the biggest mistake. So it is important to find your people, because it helps from marketing, of course, but it also helps from service. And I think a lot of people don't think of that, is that if these are the people and this is the problem I solve and I'm really good at solving it, it's much easier to speak to them in the marketing It's much easier to put your sales proposal together because you understand and you see patterns of this is what I do, this is how I serve. And then it's much easier to have best practices. If you're constantly working with different kinds of situations, different industries, different locations, whatever makes it different, it's hard to create your own IP, your intellectual property, your own processes. And so from every area, from getting the client to closing the client to serving the client, it's so much easier when you have your target market. So I would say to most people who are afraid, it's because they don't have enough leads, and they should talk to someone like yourself. Help get in those leads. You'll take away that fear of niching. But I think that it's a disservice for you to serve someone that you can't really do your best work with. So think of it as, who do I do my best work with? What problems do I love to solve? You're going to start to find your niche, and you should find some more joy out of it, because if you already love to fix those problems, you're going to find more joy in your marketing and how you speak to them, and you're going to find more joy in your service. So for me, it's one of those big things that I think a lot of people are afraid to do, but it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And I want to highlight what you said about finding problems to solve, not necessarily services to offer, all these kinds of things. It's what problem do I love? Am I best at solving? And for who? Because I see that mistake everywhere of like, I offer all these things. And it's like, well, that's not really going to talk to the decision maker, right? They don't think about the services. They think about like, what's my pain point right now?
It's such a big difference. And if you understand their pain point and you have confidence and you show you have a process, they don't even really care what it is, but you just have a proven process. So your testimonials can help, or just your confidence and like, here, I know this problem. I've seen it before. I can fix it. That's all they're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say we have our group, our people, right? We've agreed to niche down, and we know what problems we're going to solve, and we get a list of those decision makers at those companies. Now we need to figure out what to say and kind of where to say it. So how do I, let's do the first, what do I say? Like, what does that actually look like in practice?
So one of the things that I like to say is, well, first of all, this is very hard work to do alone. It's so challenging to get this out of your own head. I've had definitely fractionals I've talked with that have been extraordinary in sales in a company. That's part of their background. That's part of what was on their path. Something messes up in our brain when we are the ones that we're selling ourselves. So it's so challenging to figure out, how do I say what I need to say? We could probably even help our clients, especially those fractional CMOs out there. You could probably do this really well for your clients, but for whatever reason, we can't do it to ourselves. So no matter what, I recommend you get someone else to be that mirror for you, to listen to someone like you, or just, if you can't even do that, just someone else who knows you well enough and can help speak back and listen to what you say. Because to sit there and write, what is my message? What is my unique value proposition? What do I need to say so that they will listen? It's just hard work. I have yet to see someone who's done it on their own do it well. So that's my biggest thing. But ultimately, I like to think that the better message, this is the message I like to go out with. And I did have someone help me with my copy and my message like that. Although I had a lot of great ideas, because I've been doing business development, I just know enough to say, I can't do this alone. But what we really leaned into is the why and the who, not the how. So many people are like, what do I do and how do I do it? So what am I? In my case, a fractional CEO. How do I do this? Oh, I do these meetings. I do that. They don't care. If you don't know who they are, like better than they know themselves, and why they need this, going back to that problem, that's the message that you need to be able to pull out and that connects with them. And you got to like check off the list of what are you, so they know how to categorize you and how you do it. But again, it goes to that smaller messaging of like, I have a proven process. They don't really care how. I think of it like a plumber. If you have your toilet backed up all over the place, you just want to know they know what they're doing. They understand why it's happening and they can fix it. You don't need to know exactly what tools they use, exactly, their who they buy their services from, their tools from, whatever. I don't care. Just fix it. That's where our buyers are coming from.
And one thing you said is, I don't necessarily need to know how you do it, right? But I need to know that you are capable, right? How, as a fractional, let's say a fractional COO, because I think it's one of the hardest to properly message, right? It's like, if I tell you I do operations and I did operations back in tech, that could mean a million different things and it's not tangible. So how can I validate that I quote know what I'm doing? Because that's the plumber that I want at my house, is like, you know what you're doing. So as a fractional COO, how do I do that?
I will say that the biggest way you can do that is that I'm going to use it like quote fingers, read their mind. If you are speaking what the problem is and why it might be happening, and you know exactly then at a high level what it's going to take to fix that, that's how they know you know what you're talking about, which is why I go back to the niche is so important, because I've seen so many patterns. I can say, let me guess, this is something that you might be dealing with. They're like, yes. And so they start to get to this moment of like, are you like, am I on candid camera? Are you watching me? Like, this is almost creepy, but really, really good, because you know almost better. You as a fractional know almost better than the potential client knows. That's how they know you know your stuff. There's other things that like the logical brain needs to check off before buying with someone, but it's the emotional brain who feels heard, who feels understood, who feels like, I've seen this before. I know how to fix it. I can get you a plan and we'll get you there. That's what's going to give them the comfort of the how. But it's the other things you can add in, like testimonies, and if you have like ratings or something like that, I mean, even just saying 5 stars kind of thing, that's all helpful, but that's the logical brain just justifying it. You can even have a certificate. That's not even really that they're looking at. It just helps the logical brain say, okay, I can feel safe making this decision. But if they know you connect and you understand even better than them their problem and how to fix it, that's going to make the biggest difference, which is why I go back to the knowing the who and why. Why do they need you? Why is this a problem? Why did this happen in the first place? Why can't they get out of it?
Can you give an example from your experience, whether it's you or someone in your community, where you give almost evidence that you know what you're talking about, like that like you practice what you just said?
Sure. I think that for me, especially in operations, though I think this happens with basically every fractional in their area, that we come into an organization that has wrong people in the wrong seats. And so that's a really easy one. We can almost always sniff it out. So you might ask them, like, what are your goals? What have you tried that's worked? What hasn't worked? Or you can ask, like, tell me more about your team. Either one of those is probably going to get them to start complaining about their folks. And so the way you can start to showcase, hey, I know what I'm talking about, is asking questions. Tell me more. Are they, are they actually getting stuff done on time? No. Are they holding the other team accountable if they're leaders? No, they're not really. Are you finding that you have to follow up with them and check it? Yes. So you kind of ask leading questions as an example. But then, I'll ask other questions like, have you tried this? What is your culture of accountability? That kind of thing. They start to realize that, like, you don't want to make them feel bad, but they start to realize, like, you are, again, showing that you know what got them there, right? And so the other thing I will often do is, if you understand your client's path of how they've grown there, I will often share, things like, my guess is, from what I'm hearing, like, I'll have them answer some questions. You probably got into this position, you started hiring. It sounds like you hired this person, you hired like a bookkeeper, that kind of thing. And you just sort of trusted them to do their own work. And then you hired other people, but you thought, hey, they're just going to be able to do it without having to keep an eye on them. Is that what I'm hearing? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay. And then I often will say this, because when you start to shine a light on some of the challenges, I will say, I just want you to know, I see this all the time, if it's true. And that makes them also feel better. One, it shows your credibility, but you're also like, it's okay. This is normal. I see this all the time. This is just part of growth. So they see your credibility, but you also make them feel like that they are the stupidest person that you've ever met. Because they're not. It is a pattern.
It makes sense. And I love the tactic of asking the leading questions, right? You validate yourself, you learn more about what's going on, like all good things happen. And it's a big thing that I talk about in our content. Before we get on that discovery call, right? People will come to me and they'll say, well, how can I make that person feel heard in my messaging? Right? Like how can I read their mind before I've spoken to them? I'm curious how you respond to that. How do you?
It's a little bit of art and science. Again, I think this is why it's so powerful to have someone help pull out of you. What are the patterns that you see and what are the typical challenges you see? Because that's what you bring forward. So in my marketing, I like to speak to the problem. I've seen this problem. This is the kind of thing that happens. These are the type of things that can fix it, right? High level. So I love a lot of educational marketing. That could be in a blog, that could be on a podcast, that can be, I do speaking in the events in the form of roundtables. I host roundtables. So I bring up topics and I get so many compliments on your topics are right on. Well, they're right on because I steal them from every day. The things that I'm seeing all the time. And so as much as you can reflect what you're dealing with, and if you're new to fractional COO or fractional marketing or fractional whatever, think about the things that you have dealt with, or again, those problems you like to solve. What are the common little pieces, not the big ones, but little pieces? If you can educate that in your marketing, you speak to this little challenge and how to deal with it, you're going to be able to have them say, oh my gosh, yes, that's me. How did you know? Like, that's exactly what it is. To me, that's excellent marketing. It's of value. It's where they feel heard. But it's also where they're building trust and familiarity, because now you feel like a trusted advisor and a friend because you're speaking what they're thinking.
I know this is like a free podcast, right? But the value that you're sharing is really gold, and is the difference between, honestly, like getting these responses and getting these sales calls and not, right? Because, and I really want to hit on what you said there that I think is crucial, is the little pieces that you hear and or have experienced. Because if I'm a marketer, the big picture is, okay, I help companies grow. Right. And I see that all the time in people's language. It's like, that's not going to resonate with anybody, right? It's so generic. Okay. But if you focus on the little pieces that make you special, like what helps, what really are the nuance of how you help a company grow, and that's in your marketing, now we have a wildly different story, right? Yeah. It's night and day.
And then I think it goes back to that fear of niching, right? Yeah. So instead of being afraid of it, lean into it. Because if you don't lean into it, just like you're saying, they'll walk away. You'll sound like everyone else instead of you'll sound like my long lost buddy who understands it. Like, that's how you want them to feel. Like, you get me.
Yeah. I was looking at some Upwork profiles the other day, and the differences between someone who niched down and did this work that you're talking about and someone else was so clear. And I live and breathe this, work every day. So it's probably different for me. But I was like, wow, I need to record some like a video on, just comparing, contrasting profiles, or even LinkedIn profiles, because your LinkedIn profile is a landing page for your business. I mean, it is, right? Yes, so you need to do that work there, or if you have a website or Upwork profile or everywhere, right? It's all the same. Anyway, so I could go on a soapbox about it, but
can I add to that a little bit, Bradley? Because one of the things you mentioned that I have done business development for other firms, and I remember this visceral experience. It just was so irritating to me that I was new to this position and I saw the marketing before and I was like, this does not work. It is too generic. It's just like what we are and who we work with. Very, very generic. And the exact words that were on the I'm trying not to give it too much away because I don't want to be rude, but the exact words that were like on our website. I went to a conference and I was just going through the brochure of sponsors. Our direct competitor had the exact same words. Because it was like, everyone's like, we'll just say, I'm a fractional COO for this. And it's like, there's no distinction. We look exactly the same using the exact same words. And that's the thing that I think is such a missed opportunity in the fractional space. The beauty of saying I'm a fractional COO is it gives people a category to put you in, or maybe ask a few questions if they're not familiar. I still have people be like, what is that? But it's just not enough to encourage more conversation. It becomes very much like, okay, cool, you sound like a lawyer or an accountant. Like, if I need you, now I know what category to put you in. So it's important to have that, but it's not going to work if you stop there.
So, and I think I saw this on your LinkedIn. So your LinkedIn has fractional COO, but then it also has how you add value, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm curious, obviously you're showcasing it, but how would you describe what your LinkedIn headline should be in your opinion?
I think for me, it tells if you can do it, and this is what I was trying to convey, and I keep playing with it too. So I'm more than happy to get feedback if you're like, I'll change it. But I want to convey the transformation. Where are you starting and where are you going with me? So I talk about, going from chaos to calm, or going from, ideas to implementation. So it's just as quickly as I can, I want to show their story. If they see that this is where they're at and they want what's the, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow kind of thing, I want them to see that, because the story is about them, not about me. It's not about my accolades. I got to give them that category. Okay, fractional COO. But where am I able to take you? If you are where it is not pleasant to be, and you want to be where I can know that I can get you to that transformation at the end of our engagement, or even through our engagement, that's what captures their interest.
And every business has those pains. Yes. Right? It's like, I don't think I've ever talked to a business owner that's like, oh, everything in my business is smooth sailing and perfect, right? There are challenges operationally, product, marketing, sales, legal, accounting. Like there's a mess somewhere, right? So, and some owner or founder or C-level is feeling that deep pain of whatever it is. And if they read your headline or your bio or your piece of content or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, Jen gets it, then I want to talk to Jen. But if I read it and have no relation to it, then I move on, right? I look at it for 3 seconds and move on to someone else.
Yes. It's what's in it for them, not what's in it for you. What's in it for them. It's just human nature. I mean, it's how I get my teenager daughter to do something, and before, how to get her to have broccoli before ice cream. It's always like, what's in it for them.
Right. I get these, I'm sure you get it too, these inbounds from people that say like, I need a social media job. And it's like, that's great. I don't know how like that relates to me, to be honest. Right. Like, it's not my job to give you a job, but if you're going to solve a problem for me, I frankly care about me and my business. And that's how every business owner is. So if you come to solve a problem for me, let's talk. But if you're in it for what's in it for you, it's just that's not my top priority, is the harsh reality.
Yeah, exactly. And that is why it is so hard to do this work alone. You need someone like yourself. You need someone who can pull it out of you, because guess what? What you're interested in is what's in it for you. You want to get paid. You want to have clients. You want to have consistency in your income. And so to be able to get out of your own head and see what's in it for someone else, I know it's in you, but to have you pull it out of yourself, your filter is always going to be like, but I need a client like yesterday. So that's what you need, that partnership with great people of branding, great people of being able to pull out your message.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I do these calls and I do these kind of niche calls, right, where I spend 45 minutes, we sit down and we do ICP, what's their pain, what's your value add, right? We do the whole thing. And the number of redirections required is significant. Right. I mean, everybody just wants to talk like, whoa, I can offer like this. And I was like, okay, that's great. We'll get there. Let's talk about the problem. Right. Problem. And then, oh no, I can do a bunch of different things. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. It's like, I'm sure you are. That's great. But like, we have to get to a place that's going to resonate with someone else. And that's not as a jack of all trades.
No, not anymore. Even if you are, and speaking as a fractional COO, and you're talking about how difficult it is because you have to be a little bit of a jack of all trades, but that doesn't sell, that doesn't give comfort, that makes them feel like you're not an expert. So you want to be an expert and seen that way by the way you communicate, not because you're like, look at my degrees and look at my, that kind of thing. Again, that's secondary. They might want to check it off just to see you're somewhat legit, but they can go see that on your experience on your LinkedIn. Where you communicate first is to connect with them, understand their problem. Then you can throw in like, oh yeah, I know this, I've done this before.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about positioning and messaging and the list and the niching down. And then it's like, what the hell do I do with it, right? So what is that, mechanism to get in front of these people? And once I have the most amazing messaging in the world, how do I get in front of these people? What do I actually do?
It's a very common question. So many people are like, okay, how do I find my potential clients? I think that where I like to ask people to start, when you are a fractional CEO or any kind of fractional, if you are solo, you don't need that many clients. But even a boutique, you don't necessarily need that many clients, because when you think about it, our work is rather intensive and it's somewhat of a longer engagement. So, maybe you're going to need maybe 10 clients in a year. Like that's potentially stretching it. You could maybe have 5 or 6. So when you step back and realize I don't necessarily need that many per fractional, you can start to maybe stress a little bit less. But because it is so limited, you really want to build relationships. So my recommendation to people is, one is to create a marketing activity that you can keep doing when you are full of clients. I don't mean take all of your hours and fill it with clients, but that you enjoy it and it is doable while you are full of clients. Because if you step off the gas and you don't continue to build new relationships and nurture relationships, that is when you hit the ebbs and flows of cash flows. And when people are like, I can't handle it, the money comes, the money goes, and then they get out. And I don't want that. One of my passions is that more people do this work, because small businesses need us. The odds are against them to survive. And I do believe fractionals are a solution to get them to get to the next level, be a productive member of their community, offer jobs to people. To me, it's really, we have an opportunity to be so effective and have a nice ripple effect with our work that I'm like, please don't get out of this work. Just keep doing the activities. So when you're looking at like, how do I go market? And it was a long way to get there. Pick something you can keep doing and that you enjoy. So for me, I mentioned I leaned into doing roundtables. So I use my lead generation to invite them to something of value, something free. For me, it's roundtables. Why did I pick that? A couple of reasons. And I encourage you, as you're listening, to listen for yourself. Maybe it's writing a blog. Maybe it's doing presentations. Maybe it's networking. But for me, what I chose, the filter that I went through is, 1, I love to facilitate conversations. 2, it showcases my skills. I'm great at listening, combining ideas. And I have to do that as a fractional COO, which is 3, it gives them a little taste of your service, right? Not give away the whole thing, but a little taste of your service. So, and I just want to do this for fun. And I looked at my life and I facilitate conversations for fun. So I just said, okay, this is the thing I want to keep doing when I'm full of clients. I'm currently full of clients. I mean, I have my firm, so I bring in other clients for other people, but I love continuing to do this kind of work. So don't pick the thing you hate to do. So I'm not a fan of writing. I'm only trying to write blogs based on if I can steal from something else, like maybe out of a podcast. Who knows? Like, I don't want to sit and write. Like, please don't make me. So pick something you just love to do. It showcases your talents and it showcases a little bit of your work, and then lean into it. If that's networking, if it's speaking, if it's guesting on podcasts, having a podcast, if it's doing some, like myself, doing some homegrown event where people can come to, whatever that is, just keep doing it. And I will say, keep doing it. I started doing roundtables in April. It is now October, same year. I went from like a couple people showing up to now I consistently have over 100 people that register, and sometimes as much as 50, 60 people show up. Sometimes it's 30. It's just being consistent and then asking them to invite others. And so now I have quite the kind of following, if you will, and the trust of she's going to bring value. And when they have the problems that they need help with, they know me. They've trusted me. They keep coming back. So I hope that helps. So it's a very, very long answer.
No, it's fantastic. And I want to keep going on this thread because, well, first I want to ask what value, like if you were pitching me or any decision maker to come to the roundtable, what value are they getting from it?
So for me, my roundtables are for, I have two different ones, but I have ones for CEOs and COOs. So those COOs may be fractional and they may be employed. But we are coming together. I call it the dynamic business duo, kind of like Batman and Robin, is that it's the one place where you can come to and come from like a creative, visionary side and analytical, execution side. And so what I do is I bring a challenge, a business topic they're dealing with, and we're looking at it's a roundtable. So for me, it's like I facilitate the conversation, I give my 2 cents, but I'm getting the peers to say, here's how I deal with it. So they walk away with what is actually happening, not theory, but in practice. They get some tools sometimes, but they also get those connections. And so that's what I've created for me. I also do roundtables just for fractional COOs so that we can talk specifically, and that comes out of my fractional COO collective group. We come together just to deal with what is unique about how we serve our clients, how we get clients, how we close clients, because that's not appropriate to have with, other potential clients of mine in the room. But hey, let's just have a place where we can deal with it. And so between those conversations, I now am building this reputation of go do Jen's stuff. That's why I built so many numbers. She's going to not sell you, not make you feel like, oh, you got tricked into coming to this thing. It's going to be interactive. You're going to learn something. You're going to meet some great people.
Let's focus on the decision makers, the CEOs that you bring to the roundtables. They're getting networking. They're getting probably some insights into like best practices for their business. Is that fair to say?
Yes, exactly.
And I'm going to ask a really simple, dumb question, but why is it important to add free value to these CEOs?
I think that there is other approaches to marketing that are a little bit of bait and switch, right? I'm going to give you something free, but I'm immediately going to sell you and try to get you to do this thing. And when you are, if you will, at the top of your funnel with marketing, you're building awareness, you're building that understanding. You want to give a lot more value than go right into the pitch. And if you compare to dating, if you, on your first date, you're like, you know what, I was thinking it would be fun if we ended this date being engaged. You're just like, oh no, that is not cool. But yet so many of the other marketing type of things, you see it in LinkedIn. You mentioned, people coming in LinkedIn, you just jump way too fast to the relationship. And you want to, really just start to get to know each other and build the trust. So having a lot of value up front, that can be lead magnets on your website. It can be, again, an event or something. Again, that's my main lead magnet is my roundtables. But if you bring a lot of value, something that they can feel like that is something I didn't think of, or I hadn't thought of, or I couldn't just get on my own, then they're going to be like, this is pretty good stuff. Let me find out a little bit more. And then when you continue, like I said, they're in your CRM and you want to keep nurturing them, they're going to keep getting value. So when people come to my roundtable, now they get my monthly newsletter, and I get them like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. This is great. So again, value. But in my newsletter, there's an invitation to get a call or get my first little purchase, right? So now it's like, okay, maybe we could take that first step into a little bit more serious relationship, but it's a part of other things. So you just kind of keep, just as you would dating, you keep the relationship moving along, but all the while you're bringing that value.
And I want to highlight for the people listening, because so many fractionals or just consultants, they tell me they don't have the time or the energy to do this kind of work. And I want to highlight what you're doing here, because it's not a small thing, right? You are growing awareness of what you do by offering free value. You're taking the time and energy to host these roundtables. And that's just the start, because then you're going to continue to nurture them through a monthly newsletter that also takes more time and energy to continue to add value. And oh, by the way, if you want to book a call with Jen, here's how to do it. And that's of course, your scoping call, right? Or at least the beginning of a relationship that could lead to an engagement. And this is not a small thing, right? Like these are real marketing activities that take time and energy. And I think these days it's required. This is no longer optional to have a real thriving fractional business. I mean, what would you say?
I think for any business. So one of the things that I often tell fractionals in this kind of conversation, and it sort of stings a little bit, so you got a little warning before I sting you. What would you tell your client if they didn't put any money or any time into marketing? As a fractional executive, I would hope you would tell them, put some money and time into marketing, because you will not grow. You will not be a legitimate business. Every business is centered really around their marketing. They think they're centered around their service, but it's really, you're a marketing business that provides this service.
Right.
Totally. One of my mentors told me that, and I just it really helps me realize this is first and foremost my biggest responsibility as a business owner, to make sure people know I exist and build trust. Like you had said earlier, it doesn't have to stop once they do the call. So the nice thing is that for me, this is going to sound very operational. I have templates. I have an executive assistant who helps me pull things together. So once I set it up, because I've got processes, I've got, delegation, I've done all the right things as an executive, that it's very little of my time. I mostly just show up and I get to do the few things that I really want to do. So more of my time is being personally with them during the roundtable, getting into that meeting, and then I just do little pieces of my newsletter that are I just want to express from my heart, just little pieces. But so much of it is templated, so much of it is processed, just like we would want our clients to do. And yet it's also, just like I said from the beginning, it's something I knew I needed to build an engine that I can keep cranking the wheel between what I can financially invest in, the time I have of myself, the time I have of my staff, and to keep just cranking it. That's why it's so important to pick something you can stick with.
The very, very top of your funnel is inviting the decision makers to the roundtable. Where do you do that? Is that on LinkedIn? Is it via email? How do you do it?
It's my main thing is in LinkedIn. It's just so easy when you are B2B to be able to find, again, that niche helps, right? I can say for me, I work with professional service folks, and I do some lighter work with nonprofits because they're still doing professional services. And I like to do a little bit of pro bono and give some things away. So even if they never become a client, I just love them in the room. But I do have some nonprofits that I've worked with as well. So for me, I've really niched it to purpose-driven companies that are doing services, right? And so for me, it's much easier. I then can use LinkedIn. Like one of the tests to know if you have a niche is, can you check enough boxes in LinkedIn that you have a nice list that you can invite them to? And many of the people that were already my connections before we started inviting to the roundtable, we invite them. So, a way to bring past connections back to life, if you will. And then we worked on targeting and inviting people through LinkedIn. Now, it's not my only way now. That's how I got started. If I'm networking or someone refers to me, or even in the roundtable, I say, please invite other people and please come back. So I've got a lot of referrals just to the roundtable. Again, referrals to the free thing still gets them in your engine. And that's been working really well because when I am just networking or meeting with people, they're like, how can I help you? And I said, invite people to my roundtable. It's not a hard invite for them. But if I say, introduce them to me for a sales call, they'll be like, sure. And then they won't, but coming for themselves to come to a roundtable, for them to invite people and they know it's valuable, it's easy because they know they're not going to be sold. They know what the experience is going to be like. So that's been like self-perpetuating.
And the key is that there's real value, right? And you've said it a number of times. I really just want to hit on it because it makes it easy to then refer someone, right? The ask actually isn't, it's almost like you're doing that person a favor by saying like, hey, there's some free value from this person, Jen. She's really great. Come check this out. And all of a sudden that person learns about you, gets a taste of your process, as you said, then gets added to your newsletter. And then you talked about, everything's templatized at this point. You've obviously put in a lot of work to make this doable month in and month out. How do you come up with the content for your newsletter that takes you, frankly, not as much time? Like, how do you save time and efficiency with that?
So good question. One of the things is I center part of my newsletter around my main marketing funnel piece. So I can bring in, I'll save one quote out of my roundtable, knowing I'm going to put it in my newsletter. So I'll say, here's the value, because again, showing the value. Mm-hmm. Here's what was shared. Don't miss it again. And then it invites to the next roundtable. So for me, it's just like a good engine. People can do that with webinars. You can do that with blogs or whatever. Just keep inviting them back in your engine. I like to do two other really easy things. Again, this is my template. It was funny. I was just telling my client this morning who does coaching for dentists. And I was like, look, you guys can use the same template, right? Because we're all service-based folks. But the other pieces that I put in are really, really easy. One is that I'm constantly doing my own personal development. I listen to podcasts, I read books, I do courses. So I just think about something I learned in the last month. I'm already doing that work. And so I just pass on, hey, here's what I'm learning, and pass that little piece on. And then I put in one tool. These are my tools. So this is a little bit of a teeny little gift, but a little taste of my service, right? It's not a big tool. Or some sort of resource that I've been giving to clients. Mm-hmm. So last time, sometimes my tools are just like a couple sentences. Like you need a mission statement. And if you have a mission statement to filter your decisions through, it's going to make you stay on mission. I think it was like that long. But that is a huge, huge tip, but something really tiny. And it's one of my tools in my toolbox, right? So just even a teensy little bit of service, a little reflection on just my own work, because they also then see, gosh, she's humble, she's learning. She's not going to be like, oh, I'm the smartest person in the world. I'll be like, look, one of mine was about imposter syndrome. So many people replied to me, they're like, I deal with imposter syndrome too. Did you check out that book? It's just connecting. It's just connecting. Yeah. So I hope that helps. Those are the two things. And then my, just my reoccurring thing, come back to this roundtable.
Right. And you're using some of the content from the roundtable that comes up to go into your newsletter, right? Yes. And spoiler, we take this podcast, right? We have the transcript and we turn it into a blog and a newsletter. Yep. Right. And then I'll actually come up with LinkedIn posts from it. I'll use some videos from it. I'll, use it for Twitter. And so this is one of the reasons that the podcast for us makes so much sense, because one, it's awareness in and of itself, but I can repurpose the content 100 times. And all of a sudden I'm now engaging, nurturing, building trust with my audience in many different ways.
And I'm going to repurpose it because I'm happy to be featured. So it's a nice double bonus. You're marketing for you. I'm marketing for you.
Exactly. And it's like, look, frankly, we don't have a head of marketing at Mylance. This is what we do. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's really me. And then I have, as you said, I have an executive assistant, I have a podcast producer, and I have a few people to help. But this is doable as a one-person show. It really is. You don't need a whole team. So I want to emphasize that. I'm loving this conversation. We're about out of time. What is one thing that you'd like to leave the audience with, maybe that we haven't covered, or one thing you want to kind of reemphasize?
I want to reemphasize the power of peers. one of the things that is challenging when you become an executive at any rate, especially as fractional, it can feel very, very lonely. Even if you're in a firm, I've been in a firm, I've been on my own, I'm starting a firm, it can feel very, very lonely. So find peers or an accountability group or something where you can, there's plenty of fractional leadership or fractional executive types of groups. And then you can find ones that are just for fractional CMOs. I have one for just fractional COOs. It's really important to not feel so alone. And when you become that executive level, you no longer really have someone to look up to be mentor me, guide me. You are now the one that your clients look up to, their team looks up to. And so the only option we really have now is peer mentorship. So that is one of my best practices for myself, but I also think it really makes a difference. And then get their resources, find out what's working for them, ask them questions, give them your resources and share. It's a very powerful, it's confidence building. You feel like you can do this because they give you hope.
Yeah, amazing. And a moment for self-promotion. I know you have your COO collective. Tell us about it. Where can we find you?
Sure. So everything is on my website. So it's Hamilton COOs with a plural s.com. You can sign up actually for my roundtables. At the bottom of the website, there's information just to like sign up for a roundtable. So try it out. You know, you are all in my, you could say in my target in terms of you serve other businesses. So you will benefit, even if I'm not trying to sell you per se, but you will find value in the conversations because we're all service industries, lawyers, accountants, consultants, and a lot of fractionals are in there because we're talking about serving clients and dealing with the challenges of our clients. So I welcome you to engage in any of the roundtables that we have, and you can find out more about me and my services and be more than happy to just have a conversation with you if you're wanting that peer mentorship.
Amazing. And we'll link all those links in the show notes so people will be able to easily access your website and LinkedIn and find the roundtables. So
thank you so much.
Jen, thanks so much for being on the show and sharing all this wisdom. It was super helpful. I enjoyed it a lot, and hopefully people get a lot of value out of it as well.
Thank you. I enjoyed learning from you, Bradley, and I'm excited to have this opportunity. I appreciate you letting me on.
Absolutely.